Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ukrainian talk show on Pod TV. Um, my name is Sasha Star, and today's guests are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sasha. Glad to be here.
My pleasure. And Ivan Kucherenko from Kyiv.
Yay.
Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hi, Jonathan.
Great
Hello
to
to
have
everyone.
you. Ivan,
Nice to have you.
usually you have a short movie for us.
Yeah,
We have it today available.
sure. We can watch it right
Yeah,
now.
let's watch it. Yeah, to have something fresh.
Не шевелись, руки, ноги чувствуешь?
Very powerful and
Doesn't need a narrative.
speechless. I'm speechless. Think about it. In 1944, Odessa on April 10th was freed from the German occupiers, and now 80 years later, Russia wants to occupy Odessa. This is insane. This is incredible. I don't know what to say. And Jonathan, I would like to ask you a straight question. I just don't understand from international politics point. I don't understand that the West is taking approach to Russia. Yeah, of course they shouldn't have done it, but they've done it. So we don't know whether to support Ukraine or maybe not support Ukraine because maybe Ukraine will fold, and maybe it's better to make some kind of a peace there. So they really don't have the resolve that the West had in Second World War, that the only one way to deal with Hitler's Germany was to completely defeat it and get surrender. And that's what happened, actually. Same with Japan. Now, as a parallel, I'm, of course, following the situation in Israel. And while Israel was horribly attacked on October 7th, now all the world is ready to condemn Israel and say that it's Israel, the pariah, and killing innocent people and so on. Although it was already proven that it was all lies, that they killed 15,000 children and so on. It was nothing but the Hamas information, nothing else. So how you can condemn Israel, which is actually was attacked horribly on October 7th and is trying to protect itself from further attacks. And here is Russia, and Russia, well, of course, Russia. Yeah, it's an old nemesis, and there is nothing we can do about it. How you can play both sides? At least be quiet about Israel. That would be that would help a bit.
Well, both in both cases, with Hamas versus Israel and in Russia versus Ukraine, they are adopting the typical tactics used by a rapist or other form of attack or murder. Look what you made me do. Blaming the victim, putting all the onus of their actions. Oh, I couldn't help myself. You people are so horrible. We just had to do these terrible things. No, that is camouflage. And what it should be, Winston Churchill understood perfectly well that the only thing that the Russians respect is strength, and the only thing they have more contempt for, they have incredible contempt for weakness, especially military weakness. And so the Western nations, various Western nations, have been steadily coming to the realization that they are next if Ukraine falls. The Russians have made it very clear through various media that they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop with Ukraine. They're already talking about other places that need to be reabsorbed into the Russian Empire. And they are using their nuclear arsenal. They are brandishing their nuclear arsenal, their so-called intimidation forces, as the cover under which they are pursuing their aggression. Which is why not only do I agree with various Ukrainian leaders that we should be supplying the maximum number possible of air defense systems and ballistic missile defense systems, such as Patriot, in as large numbers as are necessary to negate the Russian advantage and prevent them from attacking Ukraine's rare areas, but also that as I have been recommending, NATO should begin preparations in conjunction with the United States to construct a global ballistic missile defense system. In effect, what I would describe as a ring of interlocking shields around our adversaries. In effect, negate their nuclear arsenals.
Jonathan, but there are a lot of noises, and it started again. It was quiet for a while. Now it started again that Russians are preparing to detonate the nuclear devices to kill all American and Western satellites. So therefore, GPS will stop working, and the world will be impossible. So what if they will do that to man-crafted the spaceships?
Oh, you mean the space? For example, if I'm talking about creating a manned space force,
Yeah, exactly.
armed with lasers, they would be armed with lasers capable of shooting down nuclear missiles in their boost phase. That is part of the way that you defeat such a force. And the most useful thing about having a manned space force with a space fleet in Earth orbit is that if Russia or China were, for example, attack a satellite, okay, nobody cares quite so much about that because satellites don't have mothers. But if you attack a manned Space Force space fleet, manned by Space Force personnel in low Earth orbit, that's a clear act of war, an unmistakable act of war. And so that would invite that attacking that shield would invite a full retaliatory response upon the territories of Russia or China or virtually any country that would dare to attack U.S. Space Force spacecraft in low Earth orbit. That is why you deliberately put a manned space fleet in low Earth orbit armed with lasers, not nuclear weapons, because that would violate the Outer Space Treaty, and it's really not necessary to put nuclear weapons in orbit. All you need to do is put the means to neutralize or destroy nuclear missiles in their boost phase, stationed in low Earth orbit, but so that you can basically negate an entire nuclear arsenal. And that kind of system kills no one. It is essentially about the most peaceful and non-threatening manner in which to respond to a nuclear armed adversary. Negate his weapons.
Yeah,
Take them out.
Yeah.
By the way, Sasha, if you want to see an excellent example of what I'm talking about, watch the old classic Star Trek episode. In other words, the one from the 1960s. Look up, and our audience can do this too. They can look it up and watch this old classic Star Trek episode. The title of it is Errand of Mercy. Watch that episode. It illustrates very well what I am talking about.
Excellent.
Yeah, check it out, and then the next time, tell me what you thought of it.
Okay. Ivan, I'd like to ask you something else. Yesterday was 5 years since Vladimir Zelensky became president of Ukraine. And there was an article a couple of days ago in Washington Post when they were analyzing the present situation, and their analysis was that in Ukraine right now, so because 5 years has passed, so now it's 6 years, and the election has to be called at least every 5 years. So Zelensky is, although there is a war and everybody understands that his legitimacy is somewhat slides down, and analyzing his effectiveness as a president, they noted actually that he is not a real president of Ukraine. It's a duumvirate with him and Mr. Yermak. And in some cases, they see that Mr. Yermak even more influential, and because his position is actually enviable because he was not elected by anybody. He was appointed by Zelensky, so he has to report only to Zelensky and no one else. So even if he makes any mistakes or he's doing some other things or so, again, it's only Zelensky whom he has to report, and nobody else can do anything against Yermak. Do you share this wisdom of Washington Post, or you see it differently?
Actually, I'd like not to comment the legitimacy of president. It's not actually a question which can be discussed in a country in state of war. There is no possibility for any presidential or parliamentary elections when the part of your country is occupied, when a lot of people fled like refugees to other countries. A lot of people are fighting on the battlefield,
and occupied territory. What to do with occupied territory?
Yeah, how they can vote under the occupation of Russia. So it's just impossible. And those who are asking such questions or condemning Ukraine that we are not conducting any elections, either are fools or they play with Russia, because what Russia is doing, they're trying to show that President Zelensky is not legitimate. They have an entire plan, so-called Maidan number 3, which main goal is to destabilize the internal situation in the Ukraine and support of government by people, showing that president is not legitimate anymore, and also to delegitimize President Zelensky in face of Ukrainian partners in order to slow down the support of Western countries and other countries to Ukraine. So that's their main goal. Obviously, we've seen numerous articles in Western media, especially in Washington Post, which support those narratives and propaganda efforts of Russia and their so-called special psychological operations. And this is really sad, because such media with such high reputation obviously should not allow themselves to be manipulated by Russian propaganda. But we see from such articles that they're being manipulated. As for president and head of his office, I myself consider this situation being very like a situation in corporate sector, when you have a CEO of company, which obviously is put in power by the shareholders of company, by the board of shareholders, and then CEO being a person with strategic vision, with some great ideas, with the great negotiation skills, with the characteristics to motivate the team. When he appoints an COO, so-called Chief Operational Officer, who is responsible for all that process stuff and all that management of company, in order for it to all the processes being in good shape and everything to work, because it's not CEO actually who is making company work like good shaped mechanism. It's a chief operational officer, COO, who makes the company to work perfectly. And CEO is more responsible for strategy, vision, for motivating team, and all those stuff. And the head of presidential office is a classic chief operational officer. I think that if President Zelensky was not satisfied by the results which are being showed by his operational officer, Mr. Yermak, then probably he removed him and put another experienced manager who will be able to do all that stuff. So other thing which I see that those Russian psychological operations are pointed both towards Zelensky and both towards Yermak. And who is the enemy of our enemy probably is our friend. So obviously he's not as bad as it's shown by the influence of Russian propagandists. But that's only my opinion.
I'm wondering, maybe Jonathan, you have probably see the purpose for Washington Post publish such an article. What is the purpose, and who is the beneficiary of such an article? It's hard to say.
Sometimes one wonders, because you have to wonder when you see articles like that published in the Washington Post, you tend to wonder if the authors or the backers of that really are looking at the entire historical context, or really are willing to admit that they themselves are being manipulated. There is certainly a certain suspension of disbelief. For example, we all tend to like to think that we are not manipulators, or that we're very clever and very honest, as well as very honest, but we are very unwilling to admit that we are being manipulated, especially when we have a stake in it or putting. And so I think there is probably an unwillingness on the part of the editors of the Washington Post to admit to themselves that they are subject to being manipulated without their fully realizing it. So, that would be my take on it. And the only counter to that is put out the truth. Put it out. You keep putting it out, and you keep broadcasting it. And that was the purpose, for example, behind Radio Free Europe during the Cold War. You broadcast.
Unfortunately, Russia is really strong in propaganda. We've discussed a lot about it, and this is the real other kind of battlefield where they have success, because due to their propaganda efforts, obviously the military help from the United States delayed, because it was Russia who was interested in delaying the military help, and they put all their efforts to make such a great discussion between the Republicans and Democrats in order to support or not support such ideas like giving those military help in credit or other ways. And the only one beneficiary from that was Russia. They're investing millions of dollars into propaganda, and neither you nor your security services are not able to track all those money, because times when those money were delivered in some packages are passed now in the time when you have possibility to transfer any sum of money you want to other person via crypto wallets in USDT, in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. You can pay obviously anyone any sum for any services. So you will not be able to track all those crypto transactions and really to understand whether those particular journalist or editor or politician was paid by Russia, by China, by I don't know, by some alien civilization in future. But there are possibilities to pay without any track, without any evidence, and
Yeah.
this make a real opportunity for those people who are eager to earn easy money to play to assist Russia or other forces in this game. But despite that, on the real battlefield, you see that Russia don't have such success. They were aiming, like the recent article from The Economist says, that their aim was to get to the borders of Kharkiv city in 3 days when they planned their invasion in Kharkiv region. And currently they are stuck in those buffers down like 6 to 10 kilometers from the official border with Russia, and they can't advance. They are destroying the city of Vovchansk in Kharkiv like they did before in Bakhmut, in Avdiivka. They are just wiping the entire city from the earth. They are striking it with those air bombs, and that's what they can do. That's the only thing they can do on the battlefield. They don't have any significant success there, which compares to the resources and possibilities which Russia has. A country with 140 million population during 3 years can't capture the 2 regions of Ukraine, which they've major part of which they've occupied previously. They occupied Donetsk region, Lugansk region, and during almost more than 2 years of full-scale invasion, and counting 10 years before their invasion in 2014, then they can't capture those regions. They plan to get quickly through the territory of Kharkiv region and get close to Kharkiv city in order to make artillery strikes on it for 3 days. And more than 2 weeks, they are not able to get 10 kilometers away from the border with Russia. So are there possibilities such strong, and are there so strong? It's a big question. And another question, actually, which I think we can discuss today, the appointment of new Minister of Defense in Russia. It's a really interesting situation. What happens in Russia? So, Sasha or Jonathan, what's your idea about appointing an economist? Actually, he's economist on the position in the Ministry of Defense, so-called.
Jonathan? Please.
Oh, give me the grenade. Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you. I was there. Okay, come on, Ivan. Okay, toss the grenade here. All right. So, what's interesting about this is that the Russians are pouring more and more resources, and they're just pouring more and more resources into trying to, and it's achieving diminishing returns. The reports are coming out that the defense around Kharkiv is being consolidated. That essentially it's again looking like that situation I described for you in 1918 when the Germans launched their Kaiserschlacht offensive. They would pour initial resources and make initial tactical gains, but then they started taking excessive losses because they did not have the qualitative means to create a strategic breakthrough. The same situation applies here with the Russians. The Russians are pouring enormous resources into this offensive, but several Western observers have pointed out that the Russians don't even have the necessary mass or numerical superiority required to create that breakthrough. All they're doing is creating excessive casualties for themselves. And I also note that that Ukraine has steadily been acquiring the superior qualitative means in aircraft and air defense systems. They are stabilizing the front, and they are continuing to bombard the Russian rear areas, oil refineries, and weakening Russia's ability to sustain any kind of major offensive. So what I am projecting is that the Russian offensive in those eastern areas, that it is coming to a halt. They're going to take excessive casualties, and it is setting the Russians up for a decisive offensive counterstroke by Ukraine, which I predict will be in the area of Crimea. If they can do that, they can achieve local air superiority over that region, cut them off from logistical and other types of reinforcement, cut them off, isolate those forces in Crimea. Then Ukraine will have the opportunity to launch a decisive local counteroffensive into Crimea, get Crimea back under Ukrainian control, and thereby inflict a visible and unmistakable operational defeat on Russian forces, one which, I don't care how much they try to spin it with their information operations, they aren't going to be able to explain that one away. They're not going to say, oh, we really meant to do that.
Jonathan, I would like to mention something else. It's very often this war compared to Second World War or First World War. I would like to go much farther than that. I would like to compare it to the time when Mongols started to take over Russia. And what's happened is, when we're talking about 800 years ago, they were attacking Russian cities. And if Russian cities would offer any resistance, they would burn cities, they would kill all people in the city, including armies, civilians, everybody else, and so on. And it was repeating, and they were doing that for about 20 years. And then in 20 years, they realized that there is very little use of these burned cities with no population, so on. They decided that, okay, we prevailed, we won, but then what's next? What's the use of it? So they started to do the different tactics, and they started to make some coalition with some Russians against some other Russians, and they were much more careful about killing all the population and so on, because they knew there's no use of that. So what Russians are doing in Bakhmut, in Avdiivka, and earlier in Mariupol, they were doing exactly what Mongols did to Russians 800 years ago. They were burning everything. They were killing everybody, whoever was there. And what's the use? Okay, Russia took Bakhmut after several months of attack. So what's the use of that Bakhmut? It's an unlivable place, same as Avdiivka. And is that something what Russians want to do in Kharkiv? Ivan, what do you say?
Yeah, you're right. It's like actually the Russians, they want to capture Ukraine, the entire Ukraine, I mean, by several reasons. We've discussed them. There are reasons for resources, there's a reason for people, really talented, and during the Second World War, the great majority of Russians, Russian officers in the Soviet army, they were actually Ukrainian. Probably our listeners don't know that fact, but the Sergei Korolev, who was the engineer who launched Yuri Gagarin to space, the first man in space, he was Ukrainian. A lot of great scientists, artists, writers in Russian Empire, in Soviet Union, they were Ukrainians. And one of the of the major reasons why Russia wants to capture Ukraine is a cultural reason, because Russia want to be the ancestors of the Kiev Rus. Even in their history books, they are removing Kiev Rus from the history books, from the history actually, and making them that просто just Rus without Kiev, showing that
Exactly.
it is their heritage. It was not Russia, which was it was not Moscow, which was founded by the Duke of Kiev, Yuri Dolgoruki. It was Russian, and that it was Russia who was before the Ukraine, but
And Ivan, don't forget that Rus is Scandinavian word. So if they
yeah,
don't even keep
but
Rus, it's
but
Scandinavian. There's nothing Ukrainian.
but the real reason is that Russia, the current Russia, uh, which previously was a Moscow, Moscovia,
Moscovia.
not Russia, because the word Russia was brought by Emperor Peter I when he wanted to make Russia more European-like, and he named his country Russia, Russian Empire. Before that, it was Moscovia, actually, and their ancestors of Mongols. They have not the Slavic heritage majorly, not the heritage of Kievan Rus, but the heritage of Mongols, so Mongol Empire. And coming back to what you said about why they're burning the cities when they can't capture it, and like they are doing like Mongols did, Mongol horde did during their invasion. It's simple. When in family a child sees how, for instance, his father is beating his mother, is screaming on her, and all those very toxic atmosphere in family, what is the possibility then when this child will grow up, he will behave himself the same like his parents did. He will beat his wife, he will scream on her, and the relations in his family will be quite toxic. This is a really great possibility, and that's what we expect with Russia. They're childs of Mongol Empire, and all their and the major emotions which are in their soul is the anger, is the envy, because when they firstly invaded, you've seen all those videos with prisoners of war from Russia when they invaded the Kiev region, which is quite where people live much more better than the regular Russians do, and when they see the nice roads, when they've seen the washing machines in houses, toilets in houses, but not outside, they were really shocked by this, because in their propaganda they were said that Ukrainians are savages, poor people who are just begging Russia for cheap gas and all that. And when they actually invaded Ukraine, they seen that it's a prosperous country where people live much better than those every Russians in their villages and their cities in their provinces far behind the Moscow or St. Petersburg, and they became angry and they became envy, and they've steal things from Russia, and they became marauders. It's all about that.
Yeah, I can totally agree with you. And let's hope that Ukrainian will be able in next 2-3 weeks to withstand the Russian attacks, and then slowly prepare their reply in kind. And hopefully it will do something with the Crimea, because the attack on that Bilbek airport was very, very successful, and they already probably have several people who are specializing in attacks on Crimea, including missiles and bombers and all other means. So hopefully,
Oh,
there
I'm
will be more and more.
seeing indications that the West isn't either is not acknowledging or is not paying very close attention, but I'm seeing the potential for a decisive counterstroke by the Ukrainian forces at some point this summer, and this will throw off the calculations of people on both sides.
Yeah. And thankfully, the Western politicians, they sort of stopped all that noise that Western weapons cannot be used against Russia on Russian territory. It doesn't matter whether
Except of American politicians, because the
yes,
officials
but
for
I think
for
Blinken said something that it's up.
Blinken is a diplomat. He gave a really diplomatic answer, like we are not allowing and we are not disallowing. It's Ukrainian, but then official spokesperson of White House.
My advice to Ukraine would be act first, apologize later.
Exactly.
Okay.
I remember when I served in the Soviet Army when I was young, and the rule
It is
was
better to beg forgiveness than to ask permission.
absolutely. So in the Russian army, there was when you were searching and you think that there's some suspicious noise and there could be an enemy. So the rule was shoot first, ask questions second. That was
Ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, thank you so much for today's program. And we wish we will have even better news next Friday, this coming Friday, same place, same time. Thank you very much again, and Slava Ukraini.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.